All right, guys, we're back. It's Dominick Izzo out here with Izzo Wing Chun from Chicago. Before we begin today, make sure you wind up hitting that like button, that subscribe button. Type in the comments section. Let me know what you guys are thinking as time goes on. And give us a big thumbs up for this video. So you just have seen now the first full week of class and what we're going to be doing. Last Monday, what we went over was the overview, the direction of where we're taking this school and how we're capitalizing off of this time of all being pent up together. And then we discussed the first section of the first form, more so just the opening section, the first move. You know, the defining your center fighting line, chambering, punch, tan, yun sao, and we repeated that. And then Wednesday, we discussed the very first three movements of your weapons, your arsenal, your punch, da, your tan sao, your split, your wedging block, and then your even though we have no blocks in Wing Chun, we'll talk about that. Your wedging weapon, and then your yun sao, your circling hand. And we just talked about just the movements themselves. And Thursday, like every Thursday from now on at 2 p.m. Central, that's 3 p.m. Eastern, we're doing a live Q&A here on YouTube. So make sure you wind up joining me for that. Great questions as they've been coming in so far. Keep in mind the first 2 days that I did videos, it was just motions, actions. It was no real in depth on the meanings behind the actions, the movements themselves. It was just like with Wednesday, punch down center, tan, yun, grab, chamber, or that was Monday, and then Wednesday was punch, open, draw back, punch. I didn't get into the energetics behind it. I will. Trust me, I will. I'll be talking about which hip you should have intent in, rooting, energy development, all of that. Some of the stuff we're going to be talking about today goes back to reflecting on last Monday, what you learned. It also applies to everything you're doing on Wednesdays and on your own. So you have to keep in mind, that's why you keep a journal, keep a Wing Chun notebook. These things all compound. You're building brick by brick every week. So it's not like, okay, well, I punched 1,000 times Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Here's Monday. I'm ready to move on. No, you're going to be building on that punch now. So all these things too are extremely synergistic. Keep that in mind. Selim Tao, we're going back to that one, the little idea, Selim Tao. Okay, and we're going to be looking at it again, just a couple different things. It's development. And development is pretty much essential in everything you're doing from this point forward. I mean, that's what you're doing. You're developing yourself. You're developing your skill. You're developing your foundation. You're just developing, right? And you're growing, and you're constantly evolving in your skill. One of the first couple of concepts that I want you to pay attention to while you're doing the Selim Tao or Selim Dao, the little idea, however you wind up pronouncing it. Some people do pronounce it DAO, Selim Dao. These are just a few things. And remember, every week we're going to be adding to them. You're really focusing on the relationship and awareness of your entire body during that form. You may be just seated in your horse. You're going to open your feet. You're going to pivot your toes out on your heels and pivot your heels out on your toes. Adjust it, sink in your stance. Tuck your hips under, sit down, turn your shoulders off, turn your back off. Fine, that's a static position. But during the course of your movements, you're defining your center fighting line. You're putting your left over your right as you come down, and your wrists should be intersected right with your center fighting line. And then when you come up, you're crossing that over, and you're still on center line, and you're understanding there's so much, even in this movement here where you have your double tan, if you will. You're understanding the triangle that you just formed. You're understanding the triangle that you just formed, the relationship to your body. And I said I would talk about this on Wednesday, is that the very first thing that the first form teaches us, aside from defining our center fighting line, you're going to teach it that the human body you're looking at two motions at the same time. The very first movement after chamber, you come down and forward when you do the double gansao, and you define your center fighting line. Then when you come up, you don't come straight up, you come up and forward, up and forward. And that's going to come into a play later on with energy pressure drills. chi sao. So it's brilliant how one of the first things that the form does is it teaches you right off the bat energetics. So anybody who says, because there's a lot of people over the years who've talked about the fact that Selim Dao is a, it's a what is it, an extinct form, and we don't need it. How can it be extinctive off the bat? The very first thing is it shows you is energetics, no techniques, energy, the power of the form. It's like, my God, it's amazing. So you're focusing on awareness. You're focusing on the relationship with your body. And one of the first things that you do when you're in that static form and you're holding your horse, when you define your center fighting line, you're going to start seeing, am I too far extend? How far does Izzo want me to go? Here? Am I too bunched up? Oh, that's perfect and natural. Your body will tell you where perfect and natural is, to where your hips, and I know I don't have a big angle here for you guys to see, but if I'm in my stance and I'm extending my body out, my energy is naturally going to pull me forward, and it's going to pull me out of my stance if I'm paying attention to it. And if I'm too bunched up, it's going to rock me back in my stance. You're going to start to understand the relationship between even your wrist and the rest of your body, your wrist and your feet. So it's a constant development. And I'm going to get to my drawings here in a second, but it's going to be a constant development of all of the joints in your body. Your ankles, your knees, your hips, your elbows, your shoulders, spine, your neck. Everything is going to be in a relationship, and you need to concentrate and focus on the awareness of how, while you're doing the form, your neck is going to be in relationship to your knee, and how is your hips going to be in relationship to your shoulders. I didn't include the wrist, the wrist. So it's ankle, knee, hip, shoulder, elbow, wrist, spine, neck. And you're going to be developing that as time goes on during the form. That's why you do it as methodical, slow, and repetitive as you do. Your rooting and your balance. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. During the form, the concept of the form, you're going to be, just focusing on the balance, and your balance is ever shifting. I don't care if you're not supposed to stay standard or static. Your body will move microscopically as you wind up staying in that position. It will naturally rock back and forth. It will shift on your feet, and those little things you'll feel. What you should be focusing on is rooting your body's energy, down into the ground. It should be just focusing on going down into the ground. That's the root. So the one of the things that I used to think of from a side view, if you will, is that I'm thinking of taking my hip bone, my spine, and extending my spine down, because there's a curvature when you wind up doing the Selim Dao, and I want to take that spine and root it through my hips and then into the ground. I want to plant it on an anchor so that as I'm doing the form, I won't move. Now, that's impossible to maintain that anchor during movement, during foot drills, even taking a punch in a fight. So, but again, remember, root is momentarily, and it's alive in that moment. You are also taking an inventory of your weapons and ammo during that time, during that form. You're learning. It's like, oh, your tan sao. What are you learning on? This is my weapon, and I'm really. All right. Do I know my tan, my yun? It's another inventory of my weapons and ammo. All right. And while I'm doing this, remember, it's just all of these things here, all these things, they're constantly going on at the same time. I may be taking an inventory and focusing on my wrist position, my elbow position, my flat of my hand position, and the tan sao, but at the same time, how's it affecting my roots? How's it affecting my balance? How's it affecting my spinal energy going down into the ground? And I'll get to the next thing in a second. And that's the weaponry. Okay, so that's the weaponry that I'm focusing on. How is that? It's so much to concentrate on in this form. How am I supposed to continue with this whole process? It's training, and it's repetitive, and it's falling in love with something that in time will make sense to you. The only Bruce Lee quote that I 100% agree with him on is, when I first started learning Wing Chun, a punch was just a punch. Then as I went on, a punch became so much more than a punch. Then after a while again, a punch was just a punch again. What I mean by that is, when you first start doing this form, the form is just the movements, whatever. After a while, that form is going to open up to an encyclopedia of volumes and volumes and volumes of encyclopedia information on fighting. And then after a while, it's just going to be second nature again. Think of any skill set you've ever done in your life and how that applies to you. Like your job. If you're a Starbucks barista, oh my God, it's so overwhelming. I can't believe how do you operate this machine and how much to put in a mocha latte, choca, whatever the hell it is, grande. And after a while again, yeah, we'll just do this. And you line it up here and press that button, put in this amount of milk. Hopefully that makes sense. Energy, you got to dig the well. So while you are doing your weapons and my tan is going out, my punch is going out, doing that foot south section while that's going out, at the same time I'm focusing energy out, my spine, I'm digging that well deeper into the ground. I'm digging that well. So you have to really look at it as one of those giant oil rigs, right? Like a big oil rig in Texas and the pipeline is going down, 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 and you're trying to drill that oil up. Well, that's what you're doing. But instead of oil, you're digging energy because that's your belt feed of ammunition that's coming up your body and then out your weapons. That's coming out. Okay, so you are digging. So again, that's how you see all these things works together. You're understanding the relationship of your body. You're rooting into the ground. So you set your oil rig, your up, and you're digging into the ground. You are focusing on your weapon development, your ammunition inventory while you focus on that energy, storing it up in your dantian, and you're drawing it up from the earth the entire time. The belt feed of ammunition is just waiting for you to pull that trigger. Dig into the well, and you're sharpening the blade. You're oiling your gun. This is where you know your weapons: tan, pak, bong, jum. All right, that's your weapon and your ammo inventory. Now you got to clean it. Now you got to sharpen the blade, man. You've got your katana out. You've got your bacham do knives out, but you've got to sharpen them. And when you sharpen them, you're not doing this. You're taking your time. You're oiling the blade. You're appreciating it. You are cleaning it. You are taking your time doing that, which is why the aspect of this is it's meant to be methodical. It's meant to be very just focused. And this is why Wing Chun students get frustrated off the bat, is because they're like, why can't I just go out and hit something? Why can't we chi sao? Because you're taking your time to build a foundation as time goes. And that's why it's so important. That's why it's absolutely so important. So again, some of the concepts that you are learning and you should be focusing on now that you've got the first three, the movement, define center fighting line, punch, tan, yun, chamber, and then the tan, yun, foot sao section. We're going to get on the focusing of energy as we go, wrist and elbow wise, and when you're in that motion like a tan sao, a foot wu sao, as you're drawing back, you should be pushing energy forward. We'll be talking about that as time goes on. Well, what the hell do you mean by that? I get it. There's a lot of information. If somebody told me years ago, well, pull your elbow back and your shoulder back, but turn your wrist off, but your wrist should be going forward as you're pulling your elbow back. What the hell are you talking about? You'll understand. You will understand. You'll understand the points where the energy comes out, which is your ammunition, right? Your belt feed, the drawing of the energy up from the earth, storing it into your your center of gravity, feeding it up through your spine, comes out your shoulder, out your wrist, and whatever weapon you choose. The pisiform bone of your hand, the flat of your fan for a punch, your tan, your pak. This is where the ammunition comes out. For now, please. When we will be revisiting this so much, you have 2 points on your hips, if you will. Let me do this. Make sure you guys got this written down. All right, can you guys see that? Pause if you need to. Relationship awareness, rooting and balance, weapons and ammo delivery, energy, dig the well, and then sharpen the blade. All right, so let's do this really fast. Make sure if you guys got questions, you're putting them in the comment section. I will revisit them on Thursday when we wind up talking. All right, and this is my dude here. I gotta fix this up. All right, sealant towel. I don't need this right now. All right, something to think about. Here's a head, a neck, and shoulders. All right, and then your arm. Whatever arm. Here's your torso. Here's six-pack abs, things I don't have. And then here are, this is your hips, right? Your waist. And then we have our feet coming down. All right, so this is something that's really crucial when it comes down to the concepts of energy, about where you should be focusing on when you're doing your seal and dowel form. Years ago, I used to talk about, I used to feel that I had two giant hooks anchored, surgically anchored into my hips. And you have to look at this as the motion I'm going to draw. Okay, so this is a side view. Here's my anchor. I got these two giant hooks in my anchors. You guys know, it depends on what country you live in or state you live in. If you got big telephone poles, right, and they're down your street or whatever, you will see sometimes big steel line, and it is rooted into the ground, okay? And it's pulling taut on an angle to keep that thing from tipping over one, or it's not going to tip over, but it's constructionally sound to keep it in place. Same concept. Same concept. When you do the form, I want you to think of it. You've got giant steel cables, and this cable is pulling you down to center, and this giant thick cable is pulling you down to center. All right, down to center, down to center. You then form your tripod. That is your root. All right, you got two big lines, right? And they're going down and center, down, and it's rooted into the ground. A giant cable. The concept there now, from a side view and a front view, you have your tripod stance. Now, when you're in your form and you're seated, yeah, your back is relaxed here and your energy is going down, and your hips are a little bit curved, so your ass is pointed down, and that energy is sinking down into the ground. Well, if you tuck your hips under, you're exposing your hip bones, and they're naturally going to want to go forward into the ground. And if you focus on that, you can and you will. You'll both tighten your abs and then relax them. You'll feel not the upper abs, middle abs, but the lower abs, probably a good 2 inches below your navel, will engage and root down into the ground. And you're going to be like, holy shit, this is ridiculous. But then, okay, so you're doing that. How do you focus on this? Then your elbow, your wrist and what's coming out of your wrist, keeping your back relaxed, your knees not from locking up, you're going down to the ground. Do you now see the importance of why you need to train this form as much as you do, and why it will speak to you over time? This is just one thing I want you to throw in your weapon. And we'll add on to the form a little bit today. We'll add on to that. After classroom, we'll go out into the field and we'll add on to the form. But while you're doing it, this is why I say, when everyone says, oh my God, that guy's bullshit, Wing Chun, how do you know? You don't see what's going on in that guy's body. This is why you cannot see or really truly learn from online, because nobody's teaching this. Nobody is online talking to you guys about this stuff. They're not talking. They're talking about energy and elbow energy. Nobody's talking about your fucking, your energy rooted going down into the ground, and then at the same time, right? Because remember, if I just set up a tripod here, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and this energy's pulling me down to the ground. Well, there's energy going down to the ground, and then there's energy coming back up into it. You're digging your well. That's the digging the well. So I just set up my foundation there, right? My oil rig, and my spine then is going to go down into the ground, dig a hole, and it's going to just draw that energy back up and store here. This is my ammunition now, and it's being loaded for when I need it out the barrel of my weapon. Do you see the importance of this? Do you see why I love this art so much? It is profound. It's endless in your exploration. And there's so much to process. For right now, just for right now, that's what I want you to focus on. Inventory of your ammo, the relationship between your body, every parts of your body. All right, you got your head, you got your shoulders, your whole spine, your elbow, your wrist, elbow and wrist, and then, oh look, you got hip 1, hip 2, knee 1, knee 2, and ankle 1 and ankle 2. You're focusing on all of those joints and the whole synergy of how that works with your body. So that is just to add on. Now you're compounding onto what we learned on Monday, and you damn well better believe you better focus on this stuff on Tuesday or Wednesday, because Wednesday we're going to be talking about, well, if you're doing the left hand punch, putting that punch out forward, anytime that you go forward with a motion, so if I'm doing a center line punch with my left arm, if I go forward, it's the opposite hip that winds up focusing on. And when I pull back in a motion, it's the same hip. So what did I just form there? It may be hard to see in this mess. I just formed another triangle. So you're going to be doing the relationship with shoulder, elbow, wrist, all here. You got 3 triangles right there. Oh, 4 triangles right there. This is a never endless exploring martial art. Do you also see why I want you to take notes and write a notebook? Okay, I hope that made sense. Wednesday, we are going to be talking about the elbow energy supported by the hips. Same movements. We're not adding on. We may add on 1 or 2, but now we have to talk about the elbow and the relationship to the hip, wrist relation to the hip, shoulder relation to the hip, and then you have to take what you've gotten today, apply that Monday. Do you see why? Excuse me. I almost quit this art 3 times. It's frustrating. You just want to go out and punch. This is why this is a superior martial art to all others. Yeah, you get your theory. Well, I'm in kicking range. Well, I'm in punching range. Well, I'm in trapping range. What fucking good is it to be in those ranges if you don't understand your own body to begin with? And this is such a problem for other martial arts out there. They want to talk about that opponent that's coming in. They don't ever want to talk about you. Yeah, self-protect. We got self-perfection drills. Do you? Do you really? Do you have self-perfection study? Do you really know how your body is working? It's not about how you can take a punch. It is so much more than that. So now you're seeing a little bit more in this, the dynamics of how everything is alive in this motion. That's 4 triangles in one side. I didn't include the triangle to support the same side hip, opposite side hip with your neck and your spine while you're doing that same motion. I may be putting a punch out and it's like shit. All right, so as I punch forward, my right hip supports my elbow, supports my shoulder and my wrist. As I open my wusao hand, I have to pull this back, right? I'm pulling my elbow back, but I'm projecting my wrist energy forward, and now I'm putting my intent in my opposite hip to support that elbow, and the triangles are there alive too. But I'm still putting the energy down into the ground, and I'm still putting the energy forward from my tripod. I'm still relaxing my upper back and my shoulders, and I'm still drawing energy up from the earth at the same time. Holy shit. It's a conversation. It's a dance. It is a flow. It's alive. It's alive. So if anything, you have to think of your Wing Chun as that. It is absolutely alive. And it is the most beautiful thing that you'll ever wind up learning about yourself. I hope that makes sense. Excuse me. We'll go out in the field for some add-on with some Sealam Dao. And then I will see you Wednesday for more classroom and more weaponry training. And then Thursday, 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern for live Q&A right here in the classroom. And as always, guys, thanks much. I'll see you guys in the next video. All right, let's talk about this. I wanted to go outside, but the weather wasn't cooperating today, so it looks like we're staying in the classroom, but we're still doing the application of today. Write this down. I'm pulling away for a second. Take a look. Take a look at everything. I'm going to give you a few seconds here. I'm grabbing my coffee. I'm going to enjoy my coffee while you take a look at that board. Write that stuff down. Keep in mind, once again, that this is in part the things that I want you to learn. We have so much more to add to this as we go on. Okay? Just write this down. Pause if you need to. And we're going to go from there. All right, some things to think about before I move on to the next part of this. Remember, you're doing the first section of the first form, and you should have that motion, the motion down by now. where it'll take you time to get your elbow pointed to the ground. It'll take you time to relax your shoulder. It will take you time to wind up relaxing your lats, get your butt cheeks engaged. All of that stuff will take time, so do not think you have to have it done in the next month, the next week, the next year. It's going to take a long time, and repetition is the mother of all skill. Keeping that in mind, these are the concepts I want to talk about today. Now, we're specifically looking at the fuksao section, okay, where your wrist is relaxed and you're pointed, you're going down. It's a 3. Fuksao to wusao, draw your wusao back, relax to fuksao forward. Points to be aware of. Number 1, remember, divide your body into triangles and pyramids everywhere. Everywhere. Okay, when we talked about the upper torso, the lower part of your body, and the 2 triangles, they form the you saw earlier. I talked about the like the oil rig, the pyramid that your base forms with your energy going forward. Keep that stuff in mind. You're alive. Remember, you're alive. Here's the thing: the points where your ammunition exits the body, the barrel of your gun, if you will. That's what you have to think of. Later on, I'm going to get into the jump sao, and why jump sao is one of my favorite actions, because the energy is coming forward out of your elbow and out of your wrist at the same time with that sinking action. You're going down and forward, jump saoing into somebody. But for now, your wrist should be where your energy is coming out of in your fuksao, regardless of this bent position. Remember, I disagree with the William Chung traditional Wing Chun. You can't call it that because he copyrighted it. It's not a dog paw Chinese character, because when you torque your hand this much, you're putting all of your intent in your wrist, and therefore you're taking it away from the rest of your body. They don't like the floppy hand Wing Chun or the floppy hand Chi Sao. Well, if you've ever seen any of their students Chi Sao, they suck. And I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm trying to wake you guys up. William Chung's lineage of Chi Sao is complete shit. I don't know Chi Sao like this and whatever. And again, I'm not trying to hold back, but at the same time, too, it's a bunch of fucking garbage. You have to be able to relax your Chi Sao to get information into your body, because you're not worried about what's out here. You're worried about what's here. That's the most important part. Your wrist is relaxed because it goes to whatever action it wants to. It goes to a punch, goes to a jump, goes to a pak, goes to a bong. Remember, it's your Swiss Army knife. But keeping that in mind, these are some things I want you to focus on. The relationship right now, the relationship I want you to focus on when you're doing your first form is between your hips, your hip bones, and your elbow. Your hand is off. It may be relaxed. It's not on. You're not focusing on you're not doing eagle claw when you're doing tan sao and trapping that energy in there. You're keeping it relaxed. It's like bamboo. It's pliable, but it's not stiff like a bar of wrought iron, and it's not like a I don't know, a handful of jelly either. You're keeping your hand aware. It's awake. It's just in yellow. It's not in red and it's not in green. It's in yellow. Your relationship is between your elbow and your hips. The reason why I talked about that too, when gyms open up again, go to your local gym, get on a bench press, push that bench press forward, engaging your elbows and a relationship to your hips. You're going to go, holy shit, how was I this strong? I didn't know it. This is absolutely ridiculous. So you're focusing on your elbow. I want you to pay attention to these things, and we'll talk about this as time goes on. When your elbow goes forward, fuksao, punch, tan, your opposite hip supports it. Your opposite hip supports it. Forward, opposite hip supports. When your elbow comes backwards, draws that wusao back in by your elbow. Now this you will torque up a little bit to lock that wrist in place, because we're going to get into this again too. Your pisiform bone is where that energy is going forward while you're coming backwards. What the fuck is he talking about? I'll get to it. While your elbow is in reverse, your same side hip supports it. Forward, opposite hip. Reverse, same side hip. Your hip is going to support going up your elbow and going down into your root. You're going to give me a second. I'm going to show you. Okay? Your hip is going to support your elbow and your root at the same time. The support of your wusao hand, remember mansao and wusao, asking hand, answering hand, is going to engage everything. It's total activation. This is important. When your wusao is up, man, you've got total activation of the self. that you'll discover that and go, son of a bitch, this is intense. I can't teach you that. You have to come alive in awareness for that. And you will. You will. Your job during this time is to master going forward while in reverse. You have to learn how to go forward even though you're going backwards. I know. Well, on top of this action, where do we learn this in application? Your straight blast, your centerline punch, your chain punch. We'll get to why that is so important. We'll get to why the chain punch is so important and how you actually learn chain punch energy from one of the first motions of the first form. So pay attention to this for a second. Write this down. Take a look at it. And we're going to look at it in a second. All right, it's time to discuss what I'm talking about with that energy. What does he mean forward and back? Remember, you're a 3D. You're alive. You're dynamic. Things that you need up focusing on when you're training as your Wing Chun is all your joints. So you start at your ankle because all energy starts from the ground, right? So you got your ankles, then your knee, then your hips, your spine, elbows, shoulder, neck is I'm going to consider your part of your spine, and then wrist. So these are the joints that you wind up needing to focus on when it comes to training. You know, you're not focused on your biceps, you're not focused on your pecs, your quads, you're focused on ankles, knees, hips, spine, elbow, shoulder, wrist. That's it. Energy, what am I talking about going forward? Your mun sao hand or wu sao hand, asking hand, answering hand. So you're in a side position static. If you're doing your punch and it's going forward and this is your right hand facing the camera, your left hip on this side, your left hip at the same time is both coming up to support this and continuing down, wait, with your right hip to form that tripod into the earth. The fuck are you talking about? Where's he going with this? Please. As that punch goes out, now you're training one side of your body right now because in the form, remember, you have a hand chambered. You can get ahead of me, that's fine. But when your guard is up, you've got a 360 degree pyramid structure, which theoretically is impossible to destroy. With your Wu Sao hand up, remember, now you've got, because this is the opposite, it's static, and this one's going forward. That means your same side hip. That means your left is supporting this one. Opposite goes forward, and then when they come backwards, right? When they come back, so when this draws back into a Wu Sao, this left now supports the right, and this right supports the left. All the while, these are going down. This is the coolest stuff in the world if you really pay attention and start focusing on it. All of this is meant to form that base, your support system going down and forward. So your two hips, your right and left hip, they're always going down. Always, it doesn't matter how often it is they're always going down to support your triangle, your base, your tripod, your pyramid. And it just depends on which motion's going forward where you're putting an action forward or drawing an action back. The points when you're doing energy going outwards, you always should be focused on forward energy. So remember, here's the 5 points of your center fighting line at that level. Well, wrist going forward, elbow forward, shoulder forward, elbow forward. But that's training. You're going to determine as time goes on, if you have an opponent that's this high, how high your energy needs to be or how low your energy needs to be, and then you will see at the same time, watch me, from the 5 points, are there 2 motions at the same time? So anywhere along this angle are infinite possibilities, 2 motions at the same time of where this energy can go. Dynamic. It is unbelievably dynamic. You're never going to punch forward. 2 energy that's at the same time. Well, that's the opening of where you're down and forward and up and forward with the opening of defining center fighting line of your Selam Dao. The first form is brilliant. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. So keep that in mind. We have this, and that's why the separation here is so important, because you're maintaining a tripod while, upper hand. And this is where the Wing Chun it's a striking art comes into play. Well, yeah, because you're not going to lower your level, because what happens when you lower your level, like let's just say in a wrestling or a grappling stance, is that all of a sudden this angle changes. And your spine is no longer straight. It comes at a bent angle to where your hips are not over your feet and under your head. Your hips are back here. Because, a grappler stance is forward, and you have an interesting weight distribution, how that goes. So this is purely for the Wing Chun staying in a natural position to fight stance. So again, moving forward, the first thing, and you're going to be overwhelmed. That's why I had you guys write all this stuff down. When it comes down time to understanding energy in opposite directions, when you do your static form and your right arm is chambered and you're in your form, if your left hand is doing a punch forward, you've got to be thinking, oh, I feel my right butt cheek. My right butt cheek is activated because my hip is pushing forward and it's coming up underneath to support my elbow. But at the same time, it's also going down and forward, which means your abs will get engaged. And then once it hits that static position at a finish, my left hip absolutely comes up to recruit and support. And then I open up that wusao, and I'm going forward. My energy is going forward. Think of it as you're never retreating in a fight, but you're going to gain cover and you're firing going backwards. You're firing going backwards. Think of that. You are putting rounds down range as you're seeking cover. Boom. Left hip is engaging the left elbow. Right hip then once static supports while right hip goes forward. It is such a game of supporting your upper and lower triangle simultaneously to get the job done. This is where, keep in mind, when you first learn Wing Chun, it's like, oh, it's a punch. Then you're going to see, holy shit, a punch has nothing to do with my hand hitting the target. It has everything to do with my hips, my ankles, my shoulders, my back, my energetics, my elbow energy, my focus, my internal drawing energy up from the earth, storing it in my center of gravity. And then when I realize everywhere along this path, I can explode it back out when I need to. You're not supposed to come all the way back here and explode it. What if you sat there and you had that much room? That's your 1-inch punch. Oh shit, where'd the 1-inch punch come from? The first form. It's all over there. All over there everywhere. This is a lot. This is confusing and it's overwhelming, but I promise you the more that you wind up spending time and focusing on this, the more that it will make sense. Just remember, for now, you are training one arm. And if it's, your right arm, as it goes forward, your opposite hip supports it. As it goes backwards, your wrist still goes forward, but your same side hip supports it. And when it's static, both hips support it, while at the same time, both hips maintain your root, and any angle that can guard your torso, your legs, and or attack in that position as well too. Guys, I know it's a lot. Make sure you comment in the comment section below. Get your comments ready for Thursday, 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern. We do live. And make sure you write all this stuff down. Take this stuff into notes because it's going to mean something to you today. I promise to you, 2 months from now, 5 years from now, it's going to go, holy crap, I can't believe. I can't believe what's on here. All right. I hope you're finding value of this. And I'll see you Wednesday for some more drill training. And guys, have a great day. I'll see you guys later on.